All. This is Dr. Mobeen Sayed from drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So we had um, I do not know how to call it. We were fortunate to watch the FDA's part of it, advisory committee meeting, or we were um, it was a comical situation for us or a sad situation. So there were many ways to see that. But what I want to address is with us all, how they could actually, they kept saying it is a very complex thing. They kept saying that if you have a magic 8 ball, or you can read the tea leaves, or you can read the future, come talk with us, as if they are up against something that is happening for the first time and they have no idea what to do. And so it was very interesting to see the disability in the thinking process. And the reason for that, in my opinion, was that they actually are not aware of the data. Pharma companies were aware of the data, and these companies were aware of the data that suited them, the companies. CDC, FDA, they were not aware of the data. They would probably just pick up a study from here or a study from there, use that for their messaging, and done. So there was a huge gap in uh, knowledge, which was translating in the inability to make a good decision. And so they kept repeating, it is complex, it is such a difficult thing. It's just, we are doing our best in this way. So I wanted to go over the decisioning process, look at what they were grappling with, and then go from there to see if can we try to figure it out. So let's start. References, this is drbeen.com. In the description, there is a beautiful link, a powerful link that gives you a powerful discount, only $67. If in the future you are clicking that link and the price is different, that is because the 67 was just for once, so for a short time. So we just would at some point stop it. So anyways, that's a one-time fee, that is not recurring fee, so take advantage of that. With this is my video when we were relaying and all of us were commenting and talking and chatting. In this video, there is in the description of this current video that you're watching now, in the description, there are 2 timestamps with this video that we did this morning. One is the timestamp at 22 minutes, and the other one is at 1 hour 52 minutes. At 22 minutes, we have Dr. Meisner, and at 1 hour 52 minutes, we have Dr. Offit. These are the 2 folks who actually refused, who said no, who voted no. So I wanted you to actually hear their message before, and not here, they would take many minutes. So I'm just going to quickly summarize what they were saying. So Dr. Meisner said, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. If not, then please forgive me. He said that the coronavirus, this Omicron, is becoming more and more milder. He said the data seems like it is becoming milder. And if it is becoming milder, he said it's going to become like other human coronaviruses, which will be able to escape the antibodies. That is why our human coronaviruses cause yearly infection, common cold, and we cannot do much about that. But they also do not just keep killing us. They become more human friendly. So he said, this virus is on the path of becoming human friendly. So do we really need more vaccines for it? Are we at that point? So that was the kind of summary of one of his message. The second message of the other parts were, are we aware of the side effects and so on? The second timestamp here, 1 hour 52 minutes, is Dr. Offit. So Dr. Offit had a different point of view. His point of view was, you have a new product. And this, I kept thinking about it the whole day. When I was in corporate world, our boss used to tell us, our vice president used to tell us, or then as we grew, whoever was the boss, that don't use the word new. As soon as you use the word new, the business becomes threatened that this is a new thing and we have to have newer ways to work with it, and we would have new risks and new unknowns and so on. So just say there is an upgrade. And as soon as you use the feature upgrade, the word upgrade, the whatever changes you want, these will become acceptable. So here, Dr. Offit was saying that this is a new product. The vaccine against BA4 and 5, or even BA1, is a new product compared to the current vaccines. And he said, because it is a new product, we also do not know the effect, and we do not know the side effect. We do not know the efficacy. We do not know the duration. So he said, because we do not know this, we are actually not in a position to say, yes, let's approve this. So these were the two no's. Of course, everybody else was jumping up and down to say, yeah, let's go forward, even for children. So this is one part of today's discussion. One thing they kept saying, complex. Second, these two doctors said, we are not comfortable, and they said no as well on the vote. Third thing, the question was one, and that was from FDA or CDC, FDA, that for this fall, should we approve an Omicron booster? But hidden in there were three further questions. And when you would vote on the main question, you would allow the FDA to make the decision for the other three questions. The other three questions were the following. Number one, they said, should we have a vaccine in October, fall of this year, which is against BA1, or a vaccine against BA4 and 5? And the reasoning was that BA1 versus 4 and 5 are divergent lineages. Their effect on each other is not nicely measurable. Plus BA4 and 5 is newer, so we have less data, we have less testing. So how about we go BA1? So that was one question built into this bigger question. The second question that was built into this one was that, how about if we make monovalent vaccine or bivalent? And what they meant was, bivalent meant whatever is the current vaccine that we have today. It works, it doesn't work, it is useful, it is harmful. Whatever we have today, that plus additional antigen for Omicron. So let's say if it is messenger RNA. So at the table, they had all three vaccine providers, Moderna, Pfizer, BioNTech, and Novavax. So for messenger RNA, that would have meant the current messenger RNA that they have made, Moderna and Pfizer, BioNTech, plus an additional RNA for the newer Omicron spike protein. And similarly for Novavax, that would mean current spike protein, that is the original Wuhan spike protein, plus Omicron spike protein. If you combine them both in one dose, then that becomes bivalent. There are two types. Or alternatively, if you were voting and you decided that, hey, we want to have BA1 vaccine or BA4 and 5 vaccine, then whatever you decided, that will be the only spike protein or messenger RNA in the vaccine. This is a very important point to keep in mind, because a lot of reasoning from Dr. Offit was actually based on this one point. So this was the second question they had. The third question they had that was built into the bigger question was, will you allow the extrapolation of data for this booster to be applied to children? Meaning, we don't have data for children. They actually never had a lot of data for children. So we don't have much data, but we're going to approve this booster as well. How about we just say it is good for children too, and just move on from there? And once again, these two doctors were not very comfortable with that. The other doctors, there were some doctors who were just dancing with joy that, hey, we should have it for the children as well. This is awesome. And so I can understand that there are, as you would see my discussion, there are reasons that children would need vaccine, for example, comorbidities, or for example, if their parents are too concerned, fine, they should have an option. But generally, these were the three questions. Now, the participants in the committee were not going to be able to individually vote on each one of them. They had to say yes to booster, and then FDA would decide what will they do. And I think FDA would just ask the pharma companies to say, what do you think we should do? And the pharma company would say, you should just have a hybrid. And they say, yeah, sure, let's do that. So something like that would happen. We'll see. Okay, so this is in the references. Then neutralization escape. This is the Harvard discussion that I did a few days ago. This is a very small study, 27 individuals. Please, I have the link to this video as well. This is that video. I have the link in the description. According to this study here, Harvard researchers are saying that the current vaccine and the previous infection has become useless for Omicron. So that, keep that in mind as well, because if the vaccine has become useless, then yes, we should then have a new vaccine. Or do we even need a new vaccine? And if these vaccines have become useless, do we need to keep giving them, administering them? So keep this in mind. Then this was a chart that was used as well. This chart is about the variants. So if you see here, the variant projection keeps becoming bigger for BA5 and 4, and the BA212.1 or BA2 is shrinking. And I hope if Paul is here, Paul, I think this is still a projection. So, and if it is a projection, that's very clever of them to keep adding the size of the projection. Okay, then this data is also important to keep in mind. This is the number of cases in the US. And again, we can all agree on this one that cases are not counted correctly. They're not reported fully and so on. But still, we should look at, here is where we were in January 14. Almost 1 million cases in one day. I remember that day that all over the news this was that, hey, we had 1 million cases in one day, versus on March 30, for example, or somewhere like this, we had 30,000 cases, and nowadays 106,000. So triple compared to March, but 10 times lesser compared to January. So that is the cases. Here is the hospitalization. We looked at this yesterday as well. It's unfortunate we have to look at it once more because somehow the FDA folks were grappling with I think that if they stopped just thinking about it and looked at the data, they could have created better projections. And I know that they have supercomputers and superhuman beings who are just able to make very complex projections. And then they get stuck in that complexity and not able to get out of it and not make good decisions. But at least that's what I think. But there is simple data. We simpletons can make our simple decisions here. So this is the hospitalization. And if you see here again, this is January 18, US hospitalizations 150,000 in one day, versus in April 19,000, and at this time 27,000. So there is an increase compared to where we were in January, nothing. But compared to where we were 3 months ago, a little bit. However, UK, that actually has more than 50% dominance of BA4, 5, and 12 to 1. If you look at UK's number, they were higher for hospitalization, unless the numbers are wrong. So let's use what number we have, 20,000 or so. And UK today, or for example, June 18, UK was 6,000. UK is for sure looking at Omicron head on. And then this is the death rate. And once again, this is a whole waves here again, UK and US. And it gives me pause always to talk about death rate. Um, here, if you see, there is United States and UK. So if I go here, let's say this is January and February. So that is the result of the previous peaks in January. So US, for example, 7.78 deaths per million 7-day rolling average. Then at this time, US has been pretty steady downwards and staying downwards at 1.08 per million 7-day average. This is down from 7.7 per million. And currently, for example, on June 27, US was 1.11. So the death rate has actually reduced in both for UK and US in the BA.4-5 predominant times, and it is staying low. Although you would hear this common statement that, hey, we have to wait for some more weeks. This is probably a mantra that we've been hearing for a long time. BA4 and 5, at least in UK, has been out there for some time. If we add South Africa over here, which have dominant, then we would have even more data. Anyways, then this is the UK report. This is something that we discussed a few days ago as well. Why do I have all this data here? Because this is simple. Just to look at this data, we can make good decisions, I think. So here, UK Health Security Agency report, 24 June, report number 43. In this report, why do I bring it up? What is interesting in here is that they say, and I showed it in my previous discussions, videos, they say that the community's efficacy, the seropositive, the antibody production or presence is in 97% of the population. That is either produced by vaccine or produced by infection or combination of them. And they're saying that Omicron is not able to do that much of a damage. Remember when I was discussing it, they used the word small. They said small change in hospitalization, small change in death. And then they justified that by saying it is because the society has the seroprevalence of antibodies from infection or vaccine or both. And why do I bring that up? Because UK is saying antibodies are effective. Protection from the vaccine or the infection is effective. So think about it. If the protection is effective and is present in 97%, then do you need more vaccines? Right? So these are the data points. So now let's go to my little drawings. And I was messing with my audio this morning to channel there. So I hope my audio is working. Otherwise, I would have spent the same thing I did, which FDA was doing this morning. So can you hear me? Okay, so can you hear me? Audio is great. Okay, thank you, Skyfrog. Okay, so now check this out. I understand that the audience can be divided in following thought patterns. A segment of the audience is going to say, why are we still talking about the vaccines? Vaccines, these are not even vaccines. These are poisons. These are bad. Let's not talk about it. You guys suck if you're talking about it. Fine. That's one group. There's another group that says, we should talk more about vaccines and we should give more vaccines. And yes, we should have the vaccines. And then there's a third group that is saying, okay, I need to understand a little more. The morning's exhibition or demonstration by FDA, that brainstorming session, was not very helpful. So whatever is your personal opinion and position, I'm not going to try to change that at all. I'm going to just add data. So simple way to look at this is the following. Number one, we are in the BA2, 4, 5 time. Number two, the vaccine that is ready for being ready in October is actually vaccine for BA1. If it is going to be the vaccine for 4 and 5, they need to work a little more. Their trials need to extend a little more, and so on. So we're talking BA1 vaccine in BA4-5 dominant time. So that is first anomaly in this whole process. Then let's look at the data. I just showed you that data as well. So simple approach. Cases, not really a great thing to look at, but cases have a relationship to long COVID. And Tim Spector's, his paper in Lancet, they think that if you have gotten the vaccine, then some of the long COVID chances are reduced. So keep that in mind. April 7th in the US, 27,000 cases. Long COVID, 4.5% with Omicron. Remember, long COVID with Delta was about 10.8%. So long COVID with Omicron, 4.5%. So that means 1,253 people would have developed long COVID on this date only after becoming infected. On June 27th, 7th, from 7th to 27th, 20 days later, let's say this is because of the Omicron. I believe that even 7th was Omicron. But anyways, BA45, 106,000 cases, and 4.5% would be 4,785 long COVID. So thrice as much or more, additional, 3 times more. So that is serious. Even one case of long COVID is a problem. Okay, so that is one data point. Hospitalization. April 7th, 10,402. June 24th, 27,000. 3 times more hospitalization. Deaths, on the other hand, April 7th, 1.61 per million 7 days rolling average versus June 27th, 0.86 per million 7 days rolling average. So actually death rate is still either staying down or reducing. So that is one data point. The question that I thought, actually, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think that they would do it. I think they deliberately don't do it. And if I'm wrong, then I'll accept my mistake. The right question to ask would have been, what were the comorbidities of the people who are becoming long COVID? Because Tim Spector's paper actually demonstrated that people with certain comorbidities, certain age, have a greater chance of developing long COVID. So here, case, hospitalization, death, they all should be accompanied by comorbidities. Age patterns are available, comorbidities are not. That, I think, is a huge mistake. And that is a data gap for us as well. If I was somewhere in FDA, I would have bugged the people, the pharmacy, the big pharmas and my own team to say, go get this data and correlate this all before we have this display, the public demonstration of our competence. Comorbidities. Secondly, vaccinated. What were the people who were in the hospital or who died? How many of them were vaccinated versus unvaccinated? If they were vaccinated, what was the reason? How long back they were vaccinated? Has the vaccine waned? Or did they have comorbidities as well? Or was it age? So a proper map should be established. So you could then make statements like the following. You could say, everyone who has, let's say, blood cancers and are 70 years of age and over, and let's say are obese as well and have diabetes, please make sure that you should consider vaccine as an option. And we are making Omicron vaccine for you as well, so that we can be as specific for your immunity as possible. Such statements could be formed if this data was available. Then another important data point that is continuously missing, and I also think that is also deliberately missing, is the actual analysis of vaccine adverse effects. So I know that there are folks who are going to say, well, we have VAERS and VAERS has data. and there are so many people who have done analysis on it. Fine. You know that VAERS data cuts both ways. There are people who would pick it up and say 10 times more and say this is all vaccine. There are people like agencies who would pick it up and say really doubtful. We do not see any data that is really showing anything. So if Zoe app could be formed, there could be an app created for doctors to say, you enter the data here for your patient who is vaccine injured. But for that, doctor had to agree that there can be a vaccine injury. For that, the whole machine have to acknowledge that there can be vaccine injury. Only then we can have a cost benefit analysis. So that means in our cost benefit analysis, what will happen if you continuously give vaccines and what are the outcomes? That is still missing. So now we know where we know things and where we do not. What we know is death rate is staying low and stable. Hopefully it would disappear. And the cases increased, hospitalizations increased, but not much. Now, decision time. 3 basic ways to make a decision. I call them UK approach, Harvard approach, and US approach. So let's see this. UK approach. UK said, and I showed you that report, vaccines are as effective for BA1 as for BA1, the same way they are effective for 4-5. So that is in their report. So the effective. Previous infection, effective. 97 point something percent seropositivity, effective. Either infection or vaccine or hybrid, they're all good. That's what UK is saying. So from that point of view, do you feel that we need more vaccines or we need newer type of vaccines? Again, if you ask me personally, today, if I am asked that you must have a vaccine, I would rather have an Omicron vaccine than a vaccine that doesn't work. So that's a different question. The question is the need of the vaccine. So UK says vaccines, current seropositivity is working, previous infection and or this. So the other thing in their report is the reinfection. And they show in their report that the reinfection is part of life and it is happening. So if I go to this report, here, this is the reinfection. So if you see here, they have the blue one is the primary infection and the orange one is the reinfection. So reinfection is happening. Now we cannot say on one end that vaccines are working and then on the other end say reinfection should have been stopped, because we know reinfection is not a vaccine's function, and whoever was saying it in the past were wrong, and every kind of person said it. The question really is severity. Can a vaccine or a previous infection reduce the severity in the future? I think that is a good question. So back here, reinfection will be part of life. We'll probably develop this new human coronavirus infection every so often. Long COVID is to be kept an eye on. Still missing in the UK approach is comorbidities. So with the UK approach, seropositivity is working, hospitalizations are less, deaths are less. BA1 protection given by BA1 is also very useful for BA4 and 5. So really, all good. This is the best we can do. If you want to have more vaccine, the same vaccine. So then if we look at that report and that approach, do we want new boosters, new formed boosters? And do we need modification? For example, if the current vaccine is working, what do we need the modification for? So that is UK's approach. I'm putting my words in their mouth. They just provided a technical report saying this is seropositivity. We think that this is not escalating because of the seropositivity. I am extrapolating it to vaccine. They actually said vaccines are effective as well. If you see here in their report, uh, effective vaccine effectiveness. So here, if you say, they say that the vaccination status for BA4 and 5 cases did not differ significantly from the BA2 cases. So they say all good. The same vaccine for BA2 and 4 and 5, all good. So that's UK approach. If that is true, let's take that on the face value, then do you need more vaccine boosters? Now let's go to Harvard approach, or this study, small study. They came back and they said everything is not working, neither previous infection nor the current vaccines. What does that mean actually? If, again, let's take this on its face value, let's say this is the second possibility, nothing is working. If that is the case, if efficacy is down to almost nothing, then you give the vaccine to someone, you are probably only exposing that person to vaccines adverse events or possibility of autoimmune diseases or side effects or injuries without any benefit. If we take this, so either we go back here, we tell these researchers that, hey guys, you guys really are not good guys. This research doesn't make sense. You did something really wrong here. We do not agree with you. And so we're not going to use your data and approach here. Fine. If we use it, they are saying vaccines and previous infections are not helping. If these are not helping, so now keep a fine point in your mind. If the current vaccine is not working, then do you think there is any use of giving the current vaccine either by itself or by mixing with the Omicron vaccine? Just hold on to that thought. Would it make sense? Okay, so then if it is not working, then is the data, imagine the previous infection is not working, meaning protection from the infection is not working. The protection from vaccine is not working. Then if you look at the cases, hospitalizations, deaths that are staying low, why are they low? Society is actually mostly opened up. Masks, I do not see much. That's physical distancing, I do not see much. People are going back to offices. So if we declare for a second that everybody's protection because of whatever is gone, then why are we not getting the next pandemic? Why are we not right now in the next we cannot wait for the next, all right, wait till next month and we'll have the next pandemic. No, this is, we're talking about BA2, 4, 5. That has been out there since December, January timeframe. Omicron BA1 came in, then 2, and now we are 4, 5 dominant. If these things were going to cause a new pandemic, we would see a new. I actually believe we are in a new pandemic. This new pandemic is milder than the previous pandemic because of Delta. We should have acknowledged this, that this is new, but again, they are afraid of the word new. So I'm going to repeat, I'm so sorry. If the study says vaccines efficacy is useless, infections efficacy is useless, but the death rate is really low and staying low, then what is causing that to be low? Maybe it is the virus then. We cannot turn around and then say, you know what, this is wrong that the virus, you say virus is milder or less lethal. So then what is really the reason that we are at a lower, better stage? Either we have to accept that the protection present in us and in the society is working, or the virus is milder, or a mixture of that. But if we discount one, then the other would become 100%. So Harvard's studies approach will be, nothing is working, but hey, if you look at the data and data looks good, then do we need to do more? I think if I took this approach, I would say protect those who are at risk, do whatever is necessary for them, whatever they want. If they want a vaccine, make a new vaccine type for them. Um, the physical distance or working from home or whatever is the necessity for them. But the rest of the society doesn't need it. So that is the Harvard approach. Now, the only reason to continue to have a new vaccine will be, as I just said, Omicron based vaccine needed for at risk population. Then let's look at the US approach. US approach was very interesting. So today's discussion approach that I saw, that was very interesting. What they were trying to say was, we have no idea what new variant we are going to encounter in a few months. And this is true that variant is a part of life now, and there are more evolutions, and we do not know. So they were saying to everyone and themselves, is the BA1 going to be the line that is going to become evolved, or BA4 and 5, or a new lineage altogether, or a combination, or something like Delta? Because they were stuck in this state, they were saying we really don't have a good choice to understand what vaccine to make. So if you put yourself in that, reading tea leaves status, then you'll also get confused that, all right, what do we do? What do we know? What would happen? I would keep bringing us back to the data. Look at the data. The cases are increased somewhat. Hospitalizations are increased a little bit, according to UK, small amount. And deaths are down. And the society is open. This is not some strict lockdown at this time in which we have it under control because of lockdown. There is no lockdown at this time. So if you look at that data, do we have to scramble? I don't believe we have to. And I also don't believe that the discussion should be, let's all predict what will be the variant. The discussion should be, the variants that are becoming dominant are 4 and 5. Can we, these are the vaccine companies who were boasting that, hey, we made the vaccine in 2 days, we made the vaccine in 7 days. Make it for 4 and 5. Why so much of a noise? Make it for 4 and 5. Don't even need to do all of this. Have it available for those who need it. The problem was that they were trying to say, I at one point heard, I believe Dr. Meisner, he was saying, what is the threshold on which you are putting this booster? What is the age? So then somebody responded that we think 50 plus. But at the same time, the question was, should children have it or not? So the problem is they're trying to say everyone should become eligible for this booster. I think we should get away from that. And they were kind of sad that half of the US population hasn't gotten the first booster. And I was thinking about myself as well. I haven't gotten the booster. 2 vaccines and then the infection. And here I am. And I think even re-exposures. Why do I need to go get boosters? So saying that we are going to have to convince everyone to go get a booster, that is a wrong approach. They should thank God or whatever they believe in and say, our society's situation has become better. We are on the right direction. Let's support this more, and let's now support at-risk areas. Stop pushing that we need to have boosters for everyone, and how do we go convince everyone, and what kind of a booster should we make? And then this is true that fine, let's say we'll have yearly infections like flu. We'll figure it out. That is not the time. This is not the time to read those tea leaves. Do something about, if you want to do something about the current Omicron, which you have not done anything about. They have been pushing the previous vaccine on the Omicron infected people or for the Omicron folks. And that is why the vaccine only works for 2 months and disappears, because it has no match with the Omicron. Okay, continuing. Final point, risk of bivalent versus univalent. So risk of bivalent itself. So let's start from here. Bivalent means they would have the current vaccine, which they kept calling it prototype. Some called it ancestral. Some called it Wuhan. But current vaccine. Current vaccine is not. So at one point, Arnold, who was hosting the meeting, he asked the sponsors, that is the big pharmas, they said, is your vaccine beta for beta? And they said, no, it is for alpha, or even before the alpha, the original. So we are continuing to push the original vaccine to every variant. So now the question they are trying to answer is, do we keep that vaccine in the dose, plus we create a new vaccine antigen or messenger RNA for it for Omicron? And within Omicron, BA1 or BA45. That was the whole discussion. So now let's think about it for a second. Bivalent and the harm of the bivalent. Here is the harm. Let's say the current vaccine is not working. That is why we want to make a new vaccine. Right? If it is not working, then keeping it in the vial only means keeping something in the vial that would cause the following. Number one, we know that it causes molecular mimicry, causing cardiovascular issues. Now it is not going to offer efficacy, but it would still be present to cause cardiovascular issues. So that is the bonus issues of cardiovascular system problems, because we decided to keep the original in there. And it was so, I became really angry when at some point somebody said, I think it was Arnold who said, or some other doctor who said, we feel comfortable having the older vaccine in there because we have trust in it. Man, on one end, you are discussing that the vaccine is not working. On the other end, you want to keep the current vaccine in there because you feel comfortable. What kind of science is that? So if you keep the current vaccine in there, the current vaccine, because of molecular mimicry, the cardiovascular issues or myocarditis, it would continue to do that. Now it is going to do that for free because it's not offering efficacy. Then the imprinting, I did that discussion a few days ago. That was the severity. Remember that there was a study that said that severity of the COVID, or severe patients, or even those who died, they had lack of neutralizing activity because of previous exposure to infection or to vaccine. What they meant was that, and I know that you know it, I'm just going to draw it because I like drawing. So let's say here is the spike protein. This is a cell with lots of ACE2. I'm so sorry I didn't do these drawings before. So this is an ACE2 on it. This is the spike protein, and with an angry virus. Let's make more spikes on it so this one doesn't look odd. It still looks odd, so my apologies. Right? So this is the normal behavior. Now the previous vaccine generated antibodies, the function of those antibody was supposed to be to bind here and interfere, neutralize the virus from entering the cell. Now we are saying that, hey, you know what? There is a change on the spike protein. Because of that antibody cannot attach to the RBD, but there may be antibodies that are now going to attach here on the side of the spike protein. Now, when they are on the side of the spike protein, they're really not stopping the process of infection, but because they are attached to the virus, they are going to cause a complement activation, and they would cause inflammation, and that would cause the severity and intensity of the disease. So this is the original antigenic sin, or this is the immune imprinting. So if this vaccine is not working, then leaving it in there is only another chance of immune imprinting. And one of the doctors actually pointed it out. He said, I think it was also Meisner, he said, we don't have real life data from it, but that is a theoretical problem. So that is correct. There's a theoretical problem that this can happen. And I actually presented the study a few days ago. That was not theoretical, that was actual. So why to keep that vaccine in there that has a chance of doing this? Not only because I feel comfortable with it. Man, Omicron spike should be for Omicron. Why do you feel comfortable with the original spike? I just could not understand why did. Anyway, so that this is a problem. The second problem is ADE is possible. Again, theoretical, but possible. ADE, once again, antibody dependent enhancement. The complement system becomes activated, it starts inflammation, macrophage would come and try to eat this whole thing up, and there would be possibly infection of the macrophage, and that is another problem. So why to leave that risk in there for ADE? So now we're leaving the risk for original antigenic sin related severity. We're leaving the risk in there for ADE without any bargain of give me something positive as well. No transactional benefit here. Then this was also a word used which actually shocked me. Today, for the first time, when I heard people talking medicine and the concepts, I was actually shocked today to understand the lack of understanding of medicine by such guru doctors. One of them said, I think that having the original one would help with the affinity maturation. Do you know what he was saying? He was saying is the following. So if we go back here, let's say this was the original spike protein. Because of that spike protein, there was a B cell somewhere. So imagine this spike protein is made by the vaccine or by Novavax or mRNA previous infection. This B cell or T cell or whatever cell got to see this spike protein and develop an antibody against it. So let's say it developed an antibody here instead of neutralizing, because that's what we're talking about, the non-neutralizing. So this was, let's say, the original vaccine's result. Creating non-neutralizing antibodies against Omicron. It was working for the original, it doesn't work for the Omicron, right? Affinity maturation is that when you are re-exposed to this antigen, then there are dendritic cells called follicular dendritic cells. They are present in our lymph nodes or wherever the immune system clusters are present. For example, they're in the lymph nodes, they're present in the MALT or mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, or gut associated lymphatic tissue. So there are many clusters of lymphatic tissue throughout our body in which these guys are sitting. And these follicular, they're not simple dendritic cells, they're follicular dendritic cells. They live in follicles. Their function is to pick up this antigen and represent it to the local B cells that already know this antigen. And this function of presenting antigen to a cell that is already aware of it only makes the cell sharp in binding better. So this is like an exercise for that cell to say, okay, try binding with it again. And the cell says, okay, I'm going to make it a little better binding. And then they say, okay, bind with it again, try again. And every time they say try again, the cell becomes better and better at recognizing this antigen and binding with this antigen and becoming active. Now, think about it for a second. Imagine you want an antigen that would block my hand. You want an antibody, an antigen that would come in, let's say vaccine or the messenger RNA, that would come in and train my body to block this hand. But somehow my hand has evolved past this blockade, and the blockade is occurring here now. You tell me, if the cell that is making the antibody, that is in its own wisdom blocking my receptor binding domain, but instead is bound to my arm, my hand is free, making it tighter and tighter over here, would that have any benefit? Or instead of the hand, the antibody has gone on my head, and you say, okay, tight, more tight, learn to do. Would that have any benefit? So the doctor said, well, I feel that maybe there is a need of keeping the original one in there for affinity maturation. Oh, no, you're going to affinity mature something that is bound to the wrong place. So that was wrong. Then, if we have a bivalent system, then imagine what would happen now. Let's say we know today that the current messenger RNA vaccines can create an epitope, this antigen with spike protein structure, that can give rise to molecular mimicry and autoimmune disease, and that can cause heart has contracting protein. All of our muscles have. So tropomycin of the heart, and there is an antibody against that. Now, bivalent vaccine has this new antibody, which, so here is a fine point. We do not know this new antibody because it is for the new spike. We do not know what kind of epitopical pattern will be on it. We do not know what kind of molecular mimicry this will do. I'm just going to make up an example. So maybe the previous one causes mimicry and the antibodies are against the heart. Maybe this one would cause mimicry and antibodies is against the liver. I'm just making it up to kind of make my point. Or maybe this would also attack some other part of the heart. And you put them together, how will you tell what did this new antibody do wrong? What did it do right? And what did it do wrong? What kind of mimicry and what kind of side effect and what kind of autoimmunity this will create? We can't tell because it is mixed with the old one. Unless its side effect is very different from the old one, and now you got two issues. For let's say, hey, somebody got this Omicron bivalent vaccine and they have myocarditis and they also have hepatitis. So now you say, okay, the old one caused myocarditis and the new one caused hepatitis. But an older vaccine that has zero benefit or less benefit, do we need to keep that around to do this confusion and do this create this extra risk? So newer antibody, we will not know what are the side effects of it. This is what Paul Offit was saying. He was saying it's a new product. It's not an upgrade. It's a new product. And if it is a new product, do you know what are the side effects? Do you know what are the benefits? Do you know what are the durations? And I liked it. For the first time, I liked what he was talking about. So what new side effects will it cause? Because it has new epitopes, what kind of new issues would it create? And if there is myocarditis, how do we know it is a new one or the old one or both of them together? Will the side effects become severe because two of them are there? Or will this have severe side effects or milder side effects and this one is still offering severe side effects? What kind of immune imprinting will this do? What kind of ADE will this do? What kind of protection will this offer? So I thought this should not even have been a question of should we have a bivalent vaccine or not. So then the questions, BA1 or 4 or 5, if you say, please tell us where the virus would go, then nobody can. But whatever is dominant, if you want to really do something fast, do it for that. One. Secondly, this question that can we extrapolate this to the children as well? No. There is neither is data there, nor the side effect profile there. So how can you just pick up some non-existing or less available data to just extrapolate it everywhere? I think that is reckless. So that is my analysis. If I would have been there, my answer would have been no as well. So this morning in the comments, I said, yes, if it is only for Omicron. But the way this, I think they're going to do is they're going to say bivalent vaccine approved for children, BA4, 5 as well, but right now BA1. And I think the reason for that will be that keeping it bivalent would give an, in my opinion, advantage to the vaccine companies that they already have drums of this little vaccine available. They want to do something with it. So they'll just sell mixtures now. The children would just become extra sales as well. Now, I empathize with the parents or those who have what is that? Comorbidities. There should be option available. So, anyways, this is where we are. It was kind of really strange thing for me. And then this continuous, they made me sick by continuously saying, oh, this was just so complex. This is just so difficult. If you know what to do, tell us. Come to my place. What it was just so it was not even a anyways. So this is the discussion. Please do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share. And if you would like to support this work, there are links in the description. You can buy me a coffee, or you can use PayPal. You can buy Dr. Bean's account for one time, very, very cheap payment. Or you can have, you can become part of Substack as well. You can actually become a member. I have not seen new members on Dr. Bean YouTube for some time. So become maybe a member here. Okay, so this is the discussion. I'm going to hang up now and we'll go to the cafe channel and we'll do the chit chat over there. So the cafe, you can search for it, Cool Beans Cafe Live, and we'll go there and do more chit chat. Keeney says, remember when someone thought people would get confused giving children a different wax? Oh, well, so here we are. The interesting thing is, so Chris D says, bivalent may be useful, but if newer variants not trialed, doesn't it add risk? The problem is in the bivalent, they're adding a comfort level. But the question is, what is bivalent useful? Wuhan vaccine useful for what? But if we say this is useful, then why do we need a new one? But if they say this is 50% useful and we want to add Omicron 50%, then they should trial the Omicron correctly as well. So this was just a hodgepodge, Chris. So if they had this kind of a chart in front of them on one wall and they just navigated that chart, I think that would, the only complaint I have from them is where is the comorbidity data? Okay, so with this, thank you very much. I'm gonna see you on the Cool Beans Cafe Live in a few minutes. Today is Alcuin's Day.